What is up, and welcome in to Post Loons episode 14, and we are recapping Minnesota United's second win of the week, second big win of the week, knocking down Portland Timbers at home 2-1. The final from Allianz Field. The Wonderwall getting to sing Wonderwall once again, and joining me to break it all down all the way across the pond from England. It is currently 3:21 a.m. over there, James?
I live in the Netherlands, so it's 4:21.
Oh, you're in Netherlands. That's right. So it's 4:21. You're 7 hours ahead. That is crazy.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you staying up super late with us. James Hargrave from Pod on You Loons joining Post Loons this week. James, how you doing? What are you doing to stay awake, I guess is my better question.
Winning helps, to be honest.
Yes, yes, it does.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it's not 4:30 and we're talking about a loss because I was very nervous.
Who's looking that way?
Yeah, I know. But no, I don't do much to stay awake, actually. I'm a night owl, so it's pretty natural. I've watched games before, so.
Fair enough. Well, James, we appreciate you staying up late to break it down. And like you said, at least we are breaking down a win. 2-1 the final from Allianz. If you are watching on the stream, feel free to give us a thumbs up on YouTube. And whether you're watching on Twitter or YouTube, feel free to leave a question or comment in the chat for us to read on the air. James, kind of before we get into breaking things down, chronologically through the match, let's go ahead and go through our three things. And being that you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, so would we see Franco was, I guess, the kind of first question that we had pre-game. Apparently, no. Apparently,
yeah, there was some rumors going on throughout the day. None that were corroborated by any of the beat reporters or official guys on the Loons beat, but there were some rumors with some actually pretty reliable accounts on Twitter who have been correct about these things in the past before. So I don't want to dismiss it by any means, saying that Franco Fragapane picked up an injury in training and he was not only going to be out tonight, but out for the foreseeable future for a handful of games due to an injury. He was not in the lineup tonight. He was not available tonight. So that seems to be correct, at least up until this point. If he is out for a longer stretch, that does spell some questions and some potential issues for Minnesota, but that also makes tonight's win even bigger, right? To get 3 points at home against Portland without arguably, your best player over this last handful of games, that's even more huge.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it'll be interesting to see when they talk about it kind of starting next week, how long he's out for. But definitely, I think, showing that the guys can go get a win, especially from 1-0 down without him is super positive going forward. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. And it's a credit to the depth of this team. I think we're really starting to see the depth in this team shine. And I think Adrian Heath has finally figured out his formula for how he's going to manage the game. Because that was always a big talking point is the substitutions on it. It's kind of an indirect back and forth between the supporters and Heath on the substitutions. But the last two matches, we have seen a formula where, Ethan Finley comes on for Nico Hansen, pushes Lod to and then Hunu comes off, so it pushes Robin Lod to the 9, and Robin Lod gets the game-winning goal. That's been the same kind of formula twice in a row, and it's worked out in Minnesota's favor. So we'll see how that plays out moving forward. We'll get to more on that in a little bit. But yes, that is very, very much a big thing, especially with missing Franco Fragapane, getting those 3 points. The second thing is home cooking, home mojo. Could they keep the momentum going at Allianz Field, right? They were 4-0-1 in their last 5 coming into this. And now, obviously, with the win, you're 5-0-1 in your last 6 at Allianz. We had mentioned, especially after the slow start, that if they were going to kind of crawl back into the playoff picture, Minnesota United would have to get points, consistently get points at home, come away with results, come away with wins at home. And they have done just that since that slow start, 5-0-1 in their last 6.
Yeah, and I mean, they talk about teams kind of making home the fortress. And I think, one of the things we talked about in our own pod, like in the off season, was that MLS teams historically aren't that great away from home. So if you can make home, this fortress where you're winning the majority, if not all of your games, that's really going to help you go and make a playoff push and really kind of push deep into the season, because you'll be able to pick up a few wins away. But if you can win the majority of games at home, that's the thing that's going to carry you.
Yes, it is. And it's paid dividends, right? We're seeing where they are in the standings, back in the playoff hunt, back in honestly, back in playoff positioning and back in really good position. You could, it's not out of the realm of possibility to see this team end up in a top 4 spot, considering where they are right now, and end up hosting a playoff game again. I mean, that would have been unheard of had we mentioned that and talking 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, talking about that possibility. But here we are, late July. You've 2 huge wins this week at home against Seattle and now Portland, and all of a sudden things are looking good despite some glaring flaws and some glaring areas of improvement as well.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I think that, especially as they, talked about in the broadcast, we have, I think, 3 weeks coming up in August where we play at home, I think, every single week. So if we can really build that and kind of keep that going, I think we're going to make a bigger push. But yeah, if you talk to people when we were 0-4 and said that, no, it's fine, like end of July, we'll be in a playoff spot, like it's all good, I think people would have called us crazy.
Definitely. So we talked about those glaring issues. So let's get into those. Coming into the match, this is before the match even started, Minnesota United was tied for 3rd in MLS with New England in shots, with 195 shots on the season. They only scored 13 goals, and that's 25th in MLS. So 3rd from the top in shots, 3rd from the bottom in goals heading into this match. Obviously not a ratio you want to see from your team.
No.
And the first 19 shots of this match did not end up in the back of the net. So that percentage was getting lower and lower and lower as the match went on, before finally the floodgates open and Chase Gasper gets the opener. Finally, you get one in the back of the net and you kind of break that cycle. But my thing is not necessarily about the being clinical in the final third, kind of seeing a lack of that. My thing is actually crediting this club for keeping at it and keeping their foot on the gas and not hanging their heads too much on was probably a huge weight on the shoulders of this team. The more shots go wide, the more shots miss the net. You have to imagine that was continuing to weigh more and more on this team, but they were keeping their pedal to the floor, keeping their foot on the gas and pushing and pushing and pushing. And finally there, it paid dividends at the end.
Yeah, and I mean, I put some stats in at halftime that we had 12 shots and we had 1 on target, right? Yeah. So we were like 8% at hitting the target. And, at the end we had 28 shots. We had 6 that were on goal, which I think is more than we've had in previous weeks.
Correct.
And obviously we scored 2 goals. So it really shows, like, when we put them on target, we're scoring like a third of the time. So we just need to, I think, even if we had slightly fewer shots, but if we just put more on target, I think we would see results. And I mean, you have 28 shots, there's a confidence there in your players that they're not afraid to pull the trigger. Yeah. And I would much rather us have a lot of shots than have too few shots.
Correct.
Because it shows we have so much space, we have opening, we have the ability to get in the box or near the box or in the goal, and there's link up, and then we're just failing at the final bit, but at least we're getting to the final bit.
I can't wait till we get into the specific plays in this match, because that link up that you just mentioned, there was some really fun link up play in the midfield tonight to talk about. So I'm really, really excited to get to that. But yes, that's my second thing is really credit to this team from a mentality standpoint, just keeping pushing, keeping their foot on the gas, and eventually doing what they needed to do to get on the board. And my third thing is every match is almost a 6-pointer at this point. We just talked about this before we went on the air, James, that with the amount of Western Conference games that we have this season, it's pretty crazy. And every match is huge. But this 3-match stretch is particularly big for Minnesota United, and they are 2 matches down, 6 points out of those matches. That 3-match stretch being home versus Seattle, home versus Portland, at LAFC, which will be on Wednesday night. You're 2 for 2. You got 6 points out of these 2. Now you got one more. If you can go to LA and at least get a point, the confidence is great right now. Even if you go to LA and lose, but you play well, I don't expect the confidence to be shaken too much. But if you can go to LA now and get a result on Wednesday, that's just going to continue to increase that confidence and kind of the front-footed nature of this team moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing we talked about before the Seattle game was that, Seattle undefeated, the league leaders, they're coming to Minnesota United, like they're coming to play at Allianz Field. We were all saying, you know what? We're going to be happy with a point. Like, we will take 1 point against Seattle. Like, that's perfectly fine. Suddenly, we have 3 points against Seattle. We have 3 points against Portland. Suddenly, we're really rolling. And I think if we can also turn 6 points with LAFC, who I think we're behind in the table, right? Or we're equal with. Yeah, we just have terrible goal difference. I think if we can even turn that around, suddenly, like you said, we're pushing top 4. We're pushing we're really already in that hunt. And, we've played probably the toughest 3 matches in a row that we're going to play all season.
Correct. And just getting 6 out of these last 2 is huge because it builds you a little bit of equity now. Or even if you do go to LAFC and you lose, you've still gotten these 6 points, these 6 huge points out of these last 2 matches. And as we say, each match is a 6-pointer, so it's as good as getting 12 points, right? Theoretically. Yeah. So, really, really good. Do want to talk about the defending, though, James. You got defending here in the notes. Loose marking on the initial goal. Really, really good header from Mora there to give Portland the lead, but it was almost a free header. He got away, got some space. Very uncharacteristic of this Minnesota United defense.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where we still just occasionally have lapses. Like we're not.
It happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, and I think someone who has kind of quite overcome that, almost didn't. There was almost a moment. Is Chase Gasper? Started the season some sloppy defending, and I think he has played every single minute. By the way, this season hasn't missed a single minute.
The only player from Minnesota United this season. I mean, Michael Boxall is usually that Iron Man, but he's obviously hurt, so he can't. But yeah, Chase Gasper has been that guy to play every single minute, which I think flies under the radar, and then where I think he gets a little bit he's a little bit underrated in terms for what he brings to this team, because having consistency at any position is great, but having it from Chase Gasper specifically on that back line where Minnesota United has been a team to lead from the back during all their success that they've had over these last 2 years, having that solid figure at left back, he's made some mistakes. He has had some lapses, as we mentioned, but still been a really solid, consistent figure on the back line.
Yeah, and I mean, especially as when the Euros were on, and people are injured and people have been getting green cards, and kind of that the rest of that line has kind of changed. He has just been that like unyielding force that's there, and I think it's something that as the guys play a bit more into this season, Jukka Rutalia, he's new to the team, but he's been playing well, and he played really well for Finland in the Euros. His link-up play to Lot was just like, where did that come from? Because we never played him on the right. But I think it's one of those things that when they settle down, they start to play a bit more and they get into regular rhythm and kind of everyone comes back from injury and really solidifies. I think it's going to build because we still have defensive lapses. Near the end, the Portland guy, I honestly don't remember his name, had a free shot basically where he was just off the back post and no one was marking him.
Yep. Right.
So there's still those things that, we need to work on. But I mean, Roman Metner was a beast tonight, apart from the one lapse.
I mean, as usual, as we've come to expect from Roman Metner, Again, talk about Chase Gasper as a solid figure on the left. I mean, I think we saw these last few matches. DJ Taylor was awesome, and I think he's going to be a really good player in this league and a really impactful figure for Minnesota United. So this is nothing against DJ Taylor, but Roman Metnair just brings sort of this next level impact on the back line for Minnesota. Not only what he does at the back, he is near perfect from a defensive standpoint. Again, he was part of that lap that led to the goal tonight, but also what he brings in the attack as well. Kind of really personifies that idea of Minnesota United leading from the back, as I previously mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, both him and Chase, the amount they push up, the amount they get on the wings, the amount they cross in the ball, I think without those guys, we would be much more stagnant and having problems. And they're really one big reason why we have 28 shots on goal. Like, the reason that we have so many is because they're able to push up, because they cause problems. And like we're going to talk about, this link-up play in there as well that helps them get the ball in. So
if you're just joining us, feel free to drop a comment on YouTube or Twitter. And also leave a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube as well. Would really, really appreciate that feedback from you guys on a huge win for Minnesota United, 2-1 over Portland. So let us know what you're thinking. Give us your questions there in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. But James, you said you were going to take this. So, you've probably never been to Ninth Street Soccer and Coffee, considering you're all the way over there in the Netherlands. But despite that, tell us a little bit about our friends over at Ninth Street.
Yeah, so at Ninth Street, for just $35 a month, you can play unlimited pickup. Just sign up through the Open Sports app where you normally register for pickup games. Remember, Ninth Street has pickup 3 days a week. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Perfect for midweek pickup games. 7 p.m., one-time pickup is only $5. If you're interested or you want to learn more, you go to ninthstreetmpls.com. Again, that's ninthstreetmpls.com.
Perfect. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram too, at 9th Street MPLS. James, you're a natural on the ad reads, man. You do the anchor ad read for Pod on You Loons. Now you're doing 9th Street. Maybe you have a future in voice acting. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if any ad companies want someone, just let me know.
All right, I have to put this out there because it's a little bit of a self gratification here. But my fiance says that I'm hot, so there's that. If you have a much more Loons related question or comment, feel free to drop that in the chat on YouTube or Twitter. See how I worked that in? There's a reason for it.
Smooth.
There's a reason for it, James. Drop it on YouTube, drop it on Twitter. We'd love to respond and hear what you're thinking about Minnesota United's 2-1 win over Portland tonight at Allianz Field. All right, so let's get into these game notes, James, sort of kind of minute by minute, chronologically, some of the things that happened. We'll kind of condense some of these too, so we don't get too repetitive here. But we mentioned that Minnesota United, despite not having a lot getting the ball in the back of the net early, midway through the match, they were on the front foot for a vast majority of this, creating chances, getting good opportunities to score. They had a shot in the first minute, which is always great to sort of get just get that mojo going and kind of get out on the front foot. And then after giving up the goal, 2 free kicks inside in the 14th minute, 2 free kicks in those first 14 minutes. Again, just continuing to get in dangerous positions. I mean, I lost count in terms of how many set piece opportunities Minnesota United had tonight between corners and free kicks. Had to have been in the teens because it seemed to be a consistent portion of the match. They were on set pieces.
Yeah, I mean, we had 10 corners. Yeah. So, and what the broadcast was saying is that's the area that we should really be pushing because their goalkeeper, who I think you got here, was making just his 4th start.
Yeah.
Most of the goals that he let in were from corners. Mm-hmm. So that's really like an area and probably something they discussed during the week about where they could really attack Portland. And I think having 10 corners and I think it was almost double-digit fouls as well, really gives the opportunity to kind of put pressure on from dead ball situations.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of dead balls tonight, but not a lot of stoppage time. I know there's not necessarily a correlation between the two, but considering how many of those situations where I was surprised we only got 1 in the first and 3 in the 3 minutes in the second, but that's neither here nor there. The first of what became a pattern in this match in the 24th minute, Robin Lod denied by Ivancic, as we mentioned, making just his 4th start in goal. This was a great, it was almost a volley opportunity, really. One-timer from Lod, just point blank. If he puts it anywhere else on net, it's a goal. But he just happens to put it right in the belly of Ivancic, keeping things scoreless. And but I mean, a great save. I mean, it's not just it was right at him. He did have to sort of react quickly and almost sit on the ball to keep it out of the back of the net. But just a first of a handful of chances for Robin Lod tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about 28 shots. I reckon Robin Lod almost had half of those. Like he was everywhere, firing the ball from each side. It was crazy. He missed in the 28. Just 4 minutes later, he has another shot. And there was a really beautiful combo between Dodson, then Unu, and then to Lod, and then just
play. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the link-up play in that was really good. And I think at some points, I think we tried to do too much. Like there wasn't enough space for us to do link-up. And I think we started, and I think this is one of the problems that we have as well, is that we start to get a little too crowded at the top of the box. Like we're not spread out enough. And I think it's one of those things where it's definitely, if we just gave ourselves a little bit more space and that we could like have space to pass and run, I think we'd be doing a lot better. Mm-hmm. But like we do have incredible link-up play, but we always end up just running out of space, and then defender easily clears, and they've shut down an attack quite simply.
It's a weird thing because the middle of the top of the 18, if you're an attacking player, is a great spot to be, and it's a great spot to put yourself in terms of getting a solid shot on goal. So I can see kind of everybody wanting to be there, but at the same time, you kind of do have to have that little spidey sense going, or that feeling with your teammates that you got to keep the space. You got to know who's going to go there and where you need to put yourself. To either get a rebound or be available if they want to dump it off to you. So yeah, I agree. There is a little bit of a lack of spacing at times in the attack for Minnesota, but it also makes some of this link-up play look a lot better too when they're doing it.
So short play. And I think it's one of those things that will build, because there were a couple of times when, Unu was going to pass to Lod, but was just like half a step too late. And so the ball didn't quite make it. And I think that's mainly because these guys are so new to each other. Agudelo, Frangipane, Unu, like all of these guys haven't played a lot of time. Nico Hansen is the same. Like if you add 4 guys, Ray's only had half a season. Like when you get that gelling and you actually, spend a lot of time together. And I think by the end of the season, we'll be seeing a lot more from these guys. But at the moment, it's just like you just got some rough edges that we need to like smooth out. And I think once they do that, I think it'll look even better, and people will have space and there'll be correct passes, and then it will kind of really, really get in. I think we'll start scoring a lot more goals as the season progresses.
I think our expectations really kind of skyrocketed almost to an unfair level the first time Hunu and Fragapane were on the field together, because Fragapane gets a goal and an assist. Hunu looks great. You're like, oh man, these guys are gelling off the bat. They're gonna score 30 goals before the end of the season. Like, you really realistically were kind of thinking that after that match. I mean, it's like, wait,
do we buy jerseys already? Like, what's the
exactly?
What's the thing?
I mean, so it's that thing where we had a really good taste of it right off the bat, but that might have led to a little bit of an unfair expectation in terms of what should be expected from these guys so early on in their time together. I think you lose Fragapane tonight though. And I mentioned on the previous episode that there have only been 2-3 times where your front 3 have really all been on the field together, and Fragapane, Unu, and Lod. It haven't really gotten a lot of run in game together because injuries or international duty or whatever has really kind of hampered that. So while we are over a month into having the roster set as it's going to be the rest of the way, presumably, it doesn't necessarily translate into a lot of minutes between that front three who are the starters moving forward.
That's it. And I mean, yeah, it's like I said, once they get a lot of time, and like Abila as well, like there's even more names to like pack into that front. And I think one person who's probably suffering at the moment is Ray. Like he came in and was so good, like so early, and had like all of these assists. And like we'll talk about it a bit more, but tonight was his first assist of the whole season. Right?
He had 7.
Yeah.
Like, in the playoffs.
And sometimes he's looked out of touch. Sometimes the ball has been there was a ball tonight that just sailed over everyone and was just a bit too long. I think he's like, it might be that we've put too much pressure on the guy because he was just so amazing. Or it might just be, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether he's injured, there's a niggle or something, but yeah, he just, like, I feel like I know he can do better based on what has been before. And I think for him, it's just like, he's a great player. He'll be fine. But I think with everyone else gelling as well, it's just going to take time to kind of hit full stride, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I'll talk a little bit more about my thoughts on Reynoso in a little bit. But let's keep moving with these game notes here. 37th minute. Nico Hansen tripped at the edge of the 18.
Yeah.
No whistle. In the run of play, I thought there might have been an opportunity to take an extra look at this. I had the volume a little bit down on my TV, so I don't know if they said that VAR did actually take a look at it in terms of giving it a check at least or not. I thought
didn't hear anything
in the run of play. I never saw a replay of it either. But just a little bit interesting that it was never really brought up after the fact, because I thought it looked, at least in real time, to be a trip and not a lot of ball.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really talk about it. They also didn't mention it. At least I didn't catch that it ever mentioned that they went to VAR either. So I guess that was that, and we move on. I think,
absolutely. 38th minute though. I have Load MG again. Just another quality chance for Load, sends it wide. Happens again a few minutes later as well. So that just counting the 4th opportunity in the first half for Robin Load. 4th golden opportunity for Load in the first half there. The one that you mentioned, Ray smashing it wide, happened in the 43rd minute. And that leads us into halftime. So those halftime stats were looking pretty par for the course from what we've seen from Minnesota United, which is not a good thing from an offensive standpoint. 12 shots after 45, 1 on target, 62% possession though for Minnesota. Now, what's interesting about this is when you look at this team, the way it's built, and you see 62% possession, you're like, oh man, it's got to be 2-0, 3-0. But over the last couple seasons, Minnesota has really been a team that has thrived when they don't have the lion's share of the possession, when they're able to kind of sit back and defend and rely on their back line, and then kind of not necessarily catch teams on counters, but find a way to grind out a goal or two to come away with a win. That's not necessarily how this team's built, but that's how Minnesota United has been successful in the past. So to see 62% possession and nothing for it, not necessarily surprising when you consider, the team that Minnesota United has been over these last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely watching from last season into this season, you notice that there is so much more attacking intent. Like I think we had Kevin Molino, and then our front wasn't super amazing. I think it was all right. We scored quite a handy amount of goals. But like you said, I think it came from the back. And this was really, you look at this Minnesota team now, and there's a reason we have so many shots on target. We're much more aggressive. We're much more attacking. And I think this is where our defense needs to catch up, because we're so used to sitting back that we're so used to having a lot of people who are back there. And now we're attacking and we're pushing up so much. This is why our defense gets caught out, because we're not used to being in this situation where we're, pushing and pushing and pushing. So I think that's another adjustment. We've got 62% possession and we've had 12 shots, but actually we're 1-0 down because the defense also hasn't quite adjusted to that. So I think it's great. I think it's great that this is happening now. We're having all these shots, we're building this confidence in the front, and we're actually kind of learning as a defense, well, how are we going to have to deal with the different style that we play? So I think it's only positive. We just need to score.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much to everybody who is watching on the stream, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. We want to hear from you. We want to get your feedback on the win tonight. Drop a question or comment in the chat for us to read here on the air. Of course, joined by James from Pod on You Loons. Check him out. CPT James Force is the handle on Twitter. Also at Pod Loons is the handle on Twitter for Pod on You Loons. You can also just search Pod on You Loons wherever you get your podcasts. Great Minnesota United podcast with James and Sam and all the guys over there at Pod on You Loons. I always have a lot of fun. And Justin. Yes, Justin is there too. Though you also have another Jeremy who joins. What's his nickname?
Doomsday Jeremy.
Doomsday Jeremy. That's how I know you're not talking about me when you say Doomsday Jeremy. Because I'm nothing about my personality I hope screams Doomsday. So but leave a question or comment in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. And if you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and give us that thumbs up. That is huge for it's like an algorithm thing. They really prioritize videos and channels to get a lot of thumbs up. So please do that as we move along with the game notes. We're in the second half here. Portland, at least in the early going, looked a lot more dangerous. But about 10 minutes in, that tide turned completely. Like, it was very, very short time in the second half where Portland really was on the front foot. And then it was about 20 minutes of just mass chaos in front of Portland's goal. Like, just craziness.
Yeah, and I think it's really been a trait with Minnesota that you watch back at games, and every time we start the second half, we're really quite slow. And we really take a time. Like, first half, we have a shot on goal in the first minute, or we have a shot at somewhere near the goal in the first minute. And in the second half, we're slow and we're kind of lethargic, and we're looking like we're going to get battered, and it's going to be like 3-0 in no time. And then suddenly, Finlay comes on for Hansen in the 55th minute, and then we turn the tide and we build a bit of confidence, we settle down, we kind of push forward. And then suddenly there's chance after chance after chance after chance. And you can hear the crowd at Allianz just getting frustrated because, lo and behold, we're not scoring any goals.
Yeah. It's interesting because while you miss a guy like Franco Fragapane, I really like what Nico Hansen brings in terms of his pace. And then you sub a guy like Ethan Finlay on for Hansen, you're sort of replenishing almost the same person. Like, you are bringing on like a probably tired Nico Hansen in for a fresh person who plays almost exactly the same way. Like, high motor, a lot of pace. I guess Ethan Finlay at this point in his career may bring a little bit more leadership and vocality on the field than Nico Hansen does. But in terms of just their actual ability and actually the way they play, they're very much the same person. And I love this spot for Ethan Finlay. I've said this time and time again.
Same.
This sort of like 55th, 60th minute sub where he can really just kind of go all out for half an hour and really do what he does best in terms of bringing that energy and bringing that pace at the end of a match when you're presumably playing a team who is tired, or individuals who are tired. To bring a guy like Finlay on who can kind of keep that high gear when other guys on the opposing team might not be able to, that's such a huge boost.
Yeah, and I mean, they were saying already, like really early in the game, that Portland looked tired. They played midweek and they had a battle, and I think they won, but they were tired. And then you kind of bring up this guy who basically it's like you wind up the toy and then you send it out for half an hour to just do the thing. Yep. And he really just causes trouble. He was everywhere. He was running down defenders. Like, there's just so much attacking intent. And I think, like you said, I really love that role for him because if you're playing him 90 minutes all the time, you're not going to get the same. But this is one of those like impact subs. And you move Lod over, and you kind of you bring Finlay on, and then suddenly there's a new attacking dimension, basically.
Yeah. And in my opinion, this is a sub Adrian Heath should make every single match, whether you're down, you're level, or you're up. Because we have seen in the past when Minnesota United parks the bus, they just, it's like, just, they take so many shots and they're just, the ball is in their third the entire time. But when they are keep that attacking mindset and they push more and they keep the ball out of their own third, that to me is how this team specifically best holds a lead, is when they sort of don't change too much about their identity and they keep pushing, they keep pressing. And Ethan Finlay is the type of guy who can do that, but he's also been around the block. And you're talking about a U.S. men's national team alum, you know, a guy who's done it all in this league. You know, having that leadership on the field in those waning moments, no matter what the scoreline looks like, is huge as well. All right.
Great timing on that drink.
That's all right. That's all right. So let's move on here. We have in the notes chance after chance after chance. That's a direct quote from Cal Williams on the broadcast. Just continued opportunities as we're getting close to the half-hour mark here. I think Minnesota United put out ill-timed tweets around the half-hour mark saying, about an hour in, how are we feeling? And the replies were like, not great. We're not feeling good
nervous
right now. Yeah, very nervous.
I was staring at it like at 60 minutes, like, am I about to stay up all night and then go onto a pod where we lose? And I'm going to have to talk about this.
I have to know, James, if you were not doing the post-game show, would you have stayed up at that point, or would you have made the decision to go to bed?
I probably would have made the decision to go to bed either at halftime or even pregame and been like, no, I don't watch too many 2 a.m. games, to be honest.
Well, you're welcome that you stayed up and got to see that win because yes. All right. So 65th minute, Agudelo on for Unu. Interesting sub given the circumstances. We've seen Agudelo on quite a bit lately. My opinion on Agudelo is this is not a guy who's going to lose you the match. You know, he's not going to win you it either, but he doesn't seem to do anything that's going to cost you either. He doesn't do much, in my opinion, but he doesn't necessarily shoot you in the foot either. So,
yeah, I mean, I would much prefer to see Abila in here because I think he brings so much and he really has a role. And I think he really, I think he does a lot and there's a lot of energy and he like has some shots and there's a lot of attacking play. Agudelo's fine. I don't ever see anything really like happening.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's okay, right?
He had one bit of dribbling play. I think it was on the left side of the box. He tried to make a move around Portland defender. Do not know who it was. And he got his pocket picked pretty early. He's definitely more of like a holding number 9, I guess, which is great if you have the lead. But in the 65th, when you're down 1-0, wasn't sure about that. But again, did not hurt this team, obviously. After that sub, to go on to get 2 goals. One that came, the first one coming in the 74th. Asani Dotson sends a lobbing cross into the box, finds the head of Chase Gasper. It's kind of a glancing header. Didn't get all of it, that's for sure.
No.
But it finds the back of the net. That's all you can really ask for. And suddenly the crowd's going crazy and you're level.
I think the quote was leapt as high as the Twin Cities skyline to head that ball in, which I thought was great. First goal of the season, you know, and like we said earlier, the guy's worked so hard and literally played every minute. So for him to get on the score sheet, especially when it's at home, especially when you're down to Portland and you had so many shots and he's the one that finally puts one in, I really think that's reward for effort. And I think he was man of the match, right?
Yes, he was. He did win man of the match. And I think it was deserved.
I agree.
I thought he played well. Again, the consistency was there. I think he has really rebounded well after kind of that slow start that he had. And yeah, getting the equalizer, I think definitely earns you man of the match.
Yeah. I mean, when you lose the first 4 games, well, guess what? Your defenders are in the spotlight because you're conceding goals. So it's on you. So it's a good bounce back.
77th, I believe this was Robin Lode's 6th chance of the match. So close. But finally, the floodgate opens for Robin in the 85th. Ray's first assist of the year, as we mentioned, and just a beautiful shot, beautiful goal from Robin. We've come to expect this from Minnesota United's right winger over the last couple of years. Just his ability to make plays on the ball, with the ball, put himself in good opportunities, and more importantly, over the last 2 years, because that was kind of the knock on him heading into last year, that he wasn't scoring goals. Well, he's proven his ability to do just that over these last 2 seasons, and he gives Minnesota United the lead for the 2nd straight match. And I want to revert back to this because there are probably some people watching that didn't hear our conversation about this earlier. This is the 2nd straight match where Adrian Heath has made 2 substitutions that have pushed Robin Lode to the 9. You bring on Finley for Hansen and then Agudelo on for Unu. That Agudelo for Unu, while we were kind of scratching our heads that Agudelo is the one to come on, bringing Unu off brings Lode to the false 9 or the 9. I still don't know what a false 9 is, but brings him to the 9.
It's technical. It's technical.
And that's where he scores the game winner. It's the 2nd straight time. That's the 2nd straight match that's happened. So credit to Adrian Heath for sticking with that formula, and understanding that this is a guy that we want up top in the waning moments of a match. But also credit to Robin Lode for being flexible enough in that role to play it extremely well and finish and obviously score the game winner for the 2nd straight match.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I have Lod's jersey, so I'm happy that he keeps scoring goals. And I think it's definitely one of those things that I think you're right. Going into last season, it wasn't super amazing, and people didn't think he was actually that any good. But I think over the past year, he's definitely grown, and it's one of those things. Remember, is it the start of this year he was starting striker because we literally had no one else. So.
Mm-hmm. And he played the 9 in the playoffs last year too.
Yeah. So yeah, even back then, he was even back then he was the number 9. So I think that's really helped because he's played quite a bit in that role now. That when he goes back to what he normally plays, on that right wing and kind of pushing in, that when he has to revert back to the 9, he actually already has the experience and kind of the understanding, and he's already had that play with Reynoso and kind of has spent that time building that relationship, that it flows a lot more. And I think this is why he keeps getting goals. And he's our leading goal scorer because he has 4.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, you look at I think Rui Diaz for Seattle is the league leader. He has 11. And that's almost more than Minnesota United as a team. Minnesota United has 15 now on the year. So, but going back to the goal itself, or going back to Robin Lode's kind of role at the 9, where he's kind of been put at the end of these last 2 matches, I think it helps to have the pieces around him that he does, right? To have Emmanuel Reynoso behind you. Specifically, you don't, just because you're playing the 9 doesn't mean you have to do it all yourself. Actually, it means quite the opposite. That you're just by virtue of having these guys in the attack, specifically Emmanuel Reynoso, you are going to get the ball in an opportunity, a high percentage opportunity to score. And although we've saw Lode have numerous chances tonight and not put the ball in the back of the net, normally Robin Lode is money when you put him in a high percentage scoring opportunity. And he notched the winner tonight. So just great substitution call by Adrian Heath for the 2nd straight match to put Lode in that position. And obviously, if you're Lode, you got to finish the job, and he did.
Yeah, there's not really much more I can add to that. He scored, and it was great, and we won.
You
But
have a comment here from Quinn Smith says, I was impressed by Agudelo, not blown away by him, but had tidy touches, always going forward and attacking the defenders. Great decoy run by him, too, to open up the space for Load to make it 2-1. And this does, James, kind of align with my line of thinking that I mentioned earlier, that Minnesota United's best defense, or I guess best course of action late in the match, is to keep pressing and keep pushing.
I
and
agree.
keep going forward. And if that's something that Agudelo brings, while at the same time bringing him on for Unu opens up that 9 spot for a guy like Robin Lode. So Agudelo have to be the striker when he's on. I do see how that can be sort of a win-win situation. And he does have experience too. So maybe it is his experience that allows him to make a decoy run like that to open up the space for Lode to score the winner. So that's actually a good comment there by Quinn. Even though it's counter to kind of what we were talking about with Agudelo, it is a really good point.
Yeah, and I mean, it actually is one of those things that it might be that he's actually playing really well, but he's playing really well in a role that actually we don't see him, or he doesn't even get the ball because he's not doing what you would naturally think and getting the ball and shooting and scoring goals. Actually, he's doing all the other 1%ers that allow us to score.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Quinn has probably played soccer at a high level and probably understands that a little bit more than somebody like me who has never played a single second of meaningful soccer in my life. I'm just a fan. I watch. I've picked up some things. I know a little bit tactically, but I'm not on that level to notice little intricacies like that. So
yeah, I was only high school
background, James.
I played in high school. I was initially a striker, and then our team goalie got injured, so I pulled on the gloves, and then I played a couple of years as a goalkeeper.
Nice. What was your save percentage?
Not amazing, but like we weren't a very good team. But also, I mean, we scored a lot and they scored a lot, so actually it was like
okay. All right. So,
I blame my defenders.
So you were just hoping to keep it interesting.
Yeah,
basically. Fair enough.
So it wasn't over though, and like we mentioned at the top, our defense has holes. An 87th minute free on the back post, they get a shot, definitely needed a save, and easily could have been 2-2.
Yeah, that's kind of a heart dropper right there. I mean, I'm getting the stream ready at that point. I'm like, okay, let's just hang on so we can talk about a win, and then that happens, and you're like, oh, come on, see this out. Because, I'm putting together notes like at that point, like, oh, Minnesota United wins. We're going to talk about a win. We're going to do this, because that's kind of what you got to do to be ready to do a stream right after the match. You kind of have to have your angle ready to go based off how that match is going at that point. So thank goodness they were able to hold on to that win. But yeah, it was not easy with Portland having a really good chance there in the 87th. But that was really it. Minnesota United 2, Portland Timbers 1. The Timbers have never won at Allianz Field. Minnesota United is 7-2-1 against Portland all time in MLS. And one of those losses was the very first match for Minnesota United ever. So aside from
does that even count? Is that like
yeah, it counts, but should it really?
Yeah.
Anyways, so what's interesting here is you jump from an 8% shooting clip, 12 shots, 1 on target in the second, to 21% for the game, 28 shots, 6 on target. I mean, the late barrage there at the end, they were getting a lot of shots at the end of the match, and a lot of them were on target finally. So it really did help that percentage go up. But we were talking, this could be a bit of a momentum changer for Minnesota and a little bit of a confidence boost from an attacking standpoint that, like, okay, yeah, we can put the ball in the back of the net consistently. We're good. We do this well. If we just keep at it and keep pushing, this is going to happen for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so far we still, this season we seem to have like the 2-goal mark is our ceiling. Like, we haven't scored more than 2 yet this season. And I think there's going to be one game where we have 28 shots and we have 6 or 7 on target and we score 5.
Yeah. Probably
there's
against
gonna
Cincinnati if we ever play Cincinnati.
yeah,
I don't know if
we
we're gonna
haven't played Cincinnati. Like, there's gonna be one game that really kind of opens, and it's gonna be like validation, right? It's gonna be like, look, there we go. We always knew we could score. We just needed it all to click and all the final touches, and then it will all, we're doing the right things. We're just falling at that last hurdle. But once we get that last hurdle correct, it's gonna look really good.
Guys, we're going to stick around for just a few more minutes here. We'd love to spend these last few minutes kind of responding to your questions or comments on the match. So drop those in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. Quinn Smith says, hi, I wasn't playing at too high a level, boys. Great game, though. Q Wonderwall. So don't know what too high a level is, but he seems knowledgeable enough on the game, to be able to pick out decoy runs. So thank you, Quinn, for the interaction. We appreciate it. So moving forward now, as we mentioned, James, Wednesday is a big one.
Yeah.
You get LAFC on the road. I believe it's a 9 p.m. Central Time kickoff, which would be a 4 a.m. Netherlands time kickoff there, James. I'm not going to ask you to come on post Loons, although maybe a little breakfast post Loons. Maybe a little early morning coffee with your post Loons, some bacon and eggs. Get it going.
Starts at 4:30 my time, so it's that could work. I think that'll be like 6:30 post Loons. That'll be all right. I'd be awake.
Sidebar. How nice is it to not have to get up at 3:30 a.m. to watch the U.S. Women's National Team in the Olympics?
Good. It's actually on quite a reasonable time for me, which definitely didn't help the first game, but the second game it worked out quite well.
Nice. All right. So Baxter Sarge says, nice to see you, Ray, kind of start to play. Nice to see Ray kind of start to play his game instead of just playing a frustrated game. I mean, yeah, the assist helps. I definitely think the frustration was still there in the first half. But maybe, as we kind of alluded to with the team as a whole, maybe getting that assist will start to take the pressure a little bit off Reynoso. And hopefully he can kind of revert back to being the distributor, the main focal point of the attack that we've seen him be in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, it's got to be tough if you're a guy who got 7 assists in a playoff and suddenly everybody around you, apart from Robin Lod, is completely different.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, I had this great thing with Kevin Molino. I had this great thing with Robin Lod. Now Robin Lod's playing like a different position some of the time. And now it's like, well, I passed to these guys because Molino would have run there, but actually Anu runs the other way. And then it's just like, well, you can see why he gets frustrated because him and the other guys are just not on the same wavelength yet. They're not all rowing in the same direction, so to speak. So I think that's one thing. And you saw it, like he got frustrated, but actually he also had good chances and he got an assist, and I think that's, especially to Lod, I think is really important because they hooked up so many times at the end of last season that it's really kind of, they can use that to then really build it out. Because I think once he gets familiar with everyone, that's when you'll start to see, we lost the first 4 games of the season. That's kind of okay. We were rubbish and we kind of showed where we needed to work on. And actually, now that we have a forward line that is together and we brought in some players, that's the kind of, we're using this time to gel. And like you said, two wins against massive opponents, that's huge. And using that momentum, that's going to help them gel and that's going to help bring them forward. And that's really going to like push them as we go forward deeper into the season. And just so expect to see more assists.
And just getting more time on the field together, right? Because as we mentioned, there have been numerous things over the last few weeks that have caused this front four, as we see it as the starting front four, to not necessarily be on the field. I mean, we saw it again tonight. No Franco Fragapane, right? Who knows how long he's going to be out. So there really are some things working against Minnesota United in terms of having those 4 guys on the field together for an extended period of time. So, obviously we'll probably see more Nico Hansen if Fragapane is out for a long time. As
I'm excited.
Yes. I think Nico Hansen has gone very underrated. I think what he brings in terms of his pace and his ability He plays a major factor in the success Minnesota United has in the attack. Those 28 shots, a lot of them don't happen without what Nico Hansen brings to the table. So I'm excited to see more of him, see him grow in that role. I love his flexibility. He can play on the right or the left, which I think is awesome. It's a huge depth piece to have, and a huge piece to have in these situations too, right? You're losing arguably your best player over the last 5 or 6 games. You're losing him for who knows how long, but we're not necessarily that worried about it because we have a guy like Nico Hansen to step into that role. And you get 3 points tonight, it just kind of furthers that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, you get 3 points without having Franco Fragapane. Like, you are laughing. Like, it's amazing how, like, you can still take the same team basically minus this huge piece. You slot another one, and hey, your jigsaw puzzle came together, and you still got to win. Mm-hmm. So you keep doing that, and hopefully, obviously, he comes back really soon. I hope the injury's not too bad. But, yeah, like, we're confident we have depth, and it's just about the more time, it actually helps because the more time that different players get on the field together, the easier it is going to be for them to gel, especially deeper in playoffs. End of the season, we're trying to rest people and manage, and it's going to be easier to them to still score goals, get shots, and get wins.
I do want to say one thing. I was seeing a few things on Twitter today that the injury was sort of like a cover up for the fact that they just didn't want to play Fragapane tonight because of the Diego Chara incident before. Stop with that. That did not happen. They would not do that. And they would not try to cover it up with an injury either. That was not the case. 100%. There was no sort of play from Minnesota United's part to not have Franco Fragapane on the field tonight because of what happened in the incident with Diego Chara in the last game. That was not the case. So if you saw that, or if you're taking that into consideration at all, I promise you that was not what happened. James from Pod on You Loons, thank you so much for joining Post Loons this week. Really do appreciate it, man. We'll have to get you on soon, hopefully at a little bit of a better time for you. But at least we're doing it over the weekend and not on like a Wednesday, Thursday morning. Yeah, this is fun, man. Hope to do it again soon.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. We're going to be recording our own pod in a couple of days to talk about the game as well. So, Pod on You Loons. You can find us in where you find your podcasts.
Yep, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. It's also where you can
Anchor.
find the Post Anchor. There you go. The best place to get your podcast, right? Or to make your podcast, right?
Yeah, easiest place to make your podcasts.
There you go. Love that. All right, James, at CPT James Force on Twitter. You can also follow Pod on You Loons at Pod Loons on Twitter. That is it for tonight. Big Minnesota United win. We will catch you late night Wednesday to break down Minnesota United and LAFC. Till then, have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend, guys. Peace.